All right, today we're going to demystify a tool that's so simple, you could literally sketch it out on a napkin, but it's powerful enough to design everything from software to rocket ships. Yep, we're talking about the flowchart. So let's get into it.
You know the feeling, right? We've all been there. You're trying to explain how something works, maybe a workflow at your job, or even just a recipe, and you end up tying yourself in knots with, okay, first you do this, but wait, hold on, before that you have to. It's just confusing for everyone. But what if there was a way to make all that complexity simple?
Well, that's exactly where the flowchart comes in. In this first part, we're going to dive into the simple power of flow. We'll break down what a flowchart really is and look at the basic pieces that make it so unbelievably effective.
At its core, a flowchart is just a visual map. It takes a process that might have been a confusing wall of text or a jumbled explanation and turns it into a clean, clear diagram. And this isn't just about making things look pretty, you know? It's about how our brains are wired. We process visual stuff way faster than text, and a flowchart just lays the whole story out for us to see.
And that right there, that's the real magic. Because it's visual, a good flowchart cuts through all the jargon and the technical mumbo-jumbo. It becomes this common ground where an engineer, a marketer, and the brand new intern can all look at the same picture and understand the exact same thing. There's no room for confusion. It just forces you to be clear.
And here are the basic pieces you'll be working with. Seriously, it's this simple. You've got an oval for the start and end points. A rectangle represents any single action or task. Then there's the diamond, which is for any yes or no decision. That's what creates a fork in the road. And finally, the arrows, which just connect everything and show you which way to go. With just these 4 shapes, you can map out almost any process you can think of. Now, you might think this is some newfangled digital tool, right? But it actually has a surprisingly deep history. It's been bringing clarity to complicated problems for over 100 years, starting on noisy factory floors and eventually making its way to the birth of computers. Let's take a quick look back.
So, the story of the flowchart is really a story about efficiency. It kicked off back in the 1920s when engineers used it to streamline factory work, cutting out wasted steps. Then, by the 40s, it took a huge leap in technology, becoming absolutely essential for programming the very first computers. After that, in post-war Japan, it became a cornerstone of their quality revolution, helping to rebuild whole industries with an intense focus on precision.
This quote from Lucidchart really just nails it, doesn't it? From those industrial roots, the flowchart has grown into this truly universal tool. And the reason is simple. It empowers anyone, no matter what your background is, to explain a really complex idea with total clarity.
Okay, so where are people actually using these diagrams today? The answer is pretty much everywhere. Let's look at a few examples of how flowcharts are solving all sorts of different problems across a bunch of different fields.
So, in business, you might have a marketing team that wants to map out a customer's journey on their website. By visualizing every single click and decision, they can instantly spot the places where people get stuck or confused, and then they can go in and redesign the whole experience to be a lot smoother.
For teachers and students, oh man, a flowchart can be a total game changer. It can take a big, intimidating research project and break it down into these small, manageable steps. It gives you a clear, visual roadmap from that first spark of an idea all the way to the final paper.
Engineers, of course, use flowcharts to design and troubleshoot incredibly complex systems. We're talking about everything from a chemical plant process to the assembly line for a new car. The flowchart is basically the blueprint, making sure every single step happens in exactly the right order every single time.
And circling all the way back to its roots in computing, programmers still lean on flowcharts to map out the logic of their code. It lets them organize their thoughts and spot potential problems in their logic before they've wasted hours and hours writing actual code. It's a huge time saver.
Okay, and this slide shows you just how flexible these things can be. A standard process flowchart, over on the left, is perfect for showing the what, the actual steps in a task. But what if you have a bunch of different people or teams involved? Well, then you can use a swim lane diagram, like the one on the right. It neatly divides the chart into lanes, showing you exactly who is responsible for each step. This is absolutely critical for making sure things get handed off correctly and don't fall through the cracks.
All right, so you've seen what they are, where they came from, and how they're being used all over the place. Now, for the fun part. Let's walk through how you can create your very own flowchart. And trust me, it's much, much easier than you probably think. It really just boils down to these 5 simple steps. First, define your purpose. You got to know exactly where the process starts and where it ends.
Second, brainstorm all the tasks. Just list them all out. Third, assign the right shape to each item on your list. Fourth, draw it. Connect those shapes with arrows and show the flow. And fifth, and this is probably the most important step, confirm it. Share it with the people who actually do the work to make sure your map actually reflects reality.
And as you're building your chart, just keep a few pro tips in mind. Always remember who you're making this for. Don't drown someone in technical details if they don't need them. Keep the flow logical, usually top to bottom or left to right. And hey, if your chart starts getting huge, just use simple connectors to break it up without creating a tangled mess. The goal is always clarity, not complexity.
So the next time you feel yourself getting all tangled up trying to explain a process, remember this simple tool. Whether you're planning a project at work, a family vacation, or maybe even just trying to make your morning routine a little smoother, a flowchart can help you find that clarity. So what complex part of your world is just waiting to be mapped out?